All right, well, good morning and welcome, divas and dudes, to the nutrition class. I'm excited to have you. Today, we are going to look at nutrition labels. There's so much information now on nutrition labels. So, what I hope to accomplish in today's class is sort of give you an update on what is new and different. There's definitely a lot of confusion and there's definitely a lot of ambiguity. And so what I hope you'll have as a takeaway is just some ideas, what to look for, what to maybe not worry so much about, and then how do we gain more information from different resources. So I'll definitely share some links if you'd like. Just let me know if you want to keep, investigating a little further. Because really, the government agencies are always in transition. They're always, listening to the public to some extent and also listening to big food companies. And so you're going to find that some of the great attempts of regulating and providing the public with good information is sometimes thwarted by the food industry because they want to play and they want to look good and they want to, of course, use every marketing strategy they can out there. So again, really the goal of today is to look at a few products. I mainly spent time in the dairy section. And so as we go through these pictures, and we're going to get to do a little taste test also, we're going to look at some, hopefully that you've never sampled before, so you can see the variety that's out there. And when I worked for HEB, I was amazed at the amount of profit margin that is in the yogurt section and the other dairy section. So being smart, with the dollar also is going to have a voice when we, purchase certain things. The profit margin will really speak loudly to the food companies to say, yeah, let's make more of that. And you'll find that the smaller the container, the greater the profit margin. So single serves, when I bought all these at HEB, I was shocked at how expensive it was to get the information for the slides. And it dawned on me that single serves really are an expensive way to go. So we'll see kind of a niche maybe for that, but also how to really navigate some of the cost. So what is that on the label? As an updated look, we are going to look at some of the dairy products. And so as we look at this particular slide, of course, it's what? Milk. And golly, milk is one of the products that gets the most bandwidth for front of pack callouts. And it's because we feed milk to our littles, our kids. And look at this, right in the beginning, it says developed with pediatricians. Did that really happen? Did pediatricians really sit down with the food companies to decide what milk has to have? I'm not sure, but I would be stunned. It also says prebiotics, good for little bellies. So there it is, little kids. It has 50 milligrams per serving of DHA, omega-3, and then also choline. Anybody know what choline is? It's part of the fat group, fat family. So that's why it carries the DHA and the omegas. I'm going to tell you that most people that buy this product aren't going to know what those ingredients are and what they do. They're going to first see what? Pediatrician, because they can relate to that. And look at that happy cow. So something that's so interesting with marketing right now is since 2007, the way food is produced, who is producing it, and how happy the animal is if it's an animal product are super important in making this food healthy. And so we're going to find out if that's really the case or not. We also see up at the top, you can't see it too well, I'm going to guess, but it says vitamin D. Do you remember back in the day when the only thing on the front of pack was vitamin D? It was either vitamin D or it was skim milk, or maybe even low fat, right? And I remember hearing people say, well, I just get the vitamin D milk. And of course, vitamin D was in the skim and the low fat as well as the full fat, but that's what they see on the label because there wasn't anything else. And of course, milk is a great resource for what? Calcium, right? And is calcium naturally occurring or is it supplemented in? A little of both. Yeah. Yeah. So this is high in vitamin D. It's organic. It's whole milk. And you can see the one on the other side. You can kind of guess what that other one is saying. What do you think it says? Grass-fed, which implies that the cows are not only happy, but it's also making the milk more nutrient rich. And so the big question is all that valid in our decision process in buying milk? And I clipped it off, but the price of milk has gone up 72% in the past 3 years. A lot of change. Wow. So Happy Cows goes even into the chocolate milk. And this one amazed me. So check this out. We probably know Nesquik. You know, that sort of breathes fun, yummy kids treat, right? Next to it is the Promised Land. So now we've dived into the healthy chocolate milk, right? Loaded with feel-good components on that picture. And then the other one is a brand new one. Anybody ever try this brand, this Volleman's? It's so interesting to me. It's a beautiful glass bottle, very old-fashioned looking, right? It's got a happy cow, but it is missing nutrition information. And I'm like, yeah, how do they get by selling vanilla milk, strawberry milk, chocolate milk with no nutrition information? So I had to look a little bit farther and I found one. This little tiny label still doesn't tell us how many grams of sugars, of fats, protein, any of that. The one next to it is the HEB brand. That's the only one that I could really find a valuable nutrition facts panel. And it tells us total fat 16 grams, saturated fat 10 grams, sodium, fiber. Look at the total carbs, 58 grams. Now remember, milk is confusing because lactose is counted in the total carbs. So that number is always kind of, what do they mean by total carbs? Because lactose isn't added to the milk. It's just part of the milk. So you go a little farther and you see total sugars, 55 grams. So your eyebrows start to raise. Okay, still, does that mean with the lactose because it's a sugar or is it added sugar? So we go down a little bit farther and we say including the added sugars, it's 60% of your daily requirement for the day in a serving in just chocolate milk, right? And protein is definitely good. I mean, 18 grams. So I never want to suggest that milk is a bad food. It's not. It's a food that's loaded with protein. You can choose non-fat or low fat if you want. And it's fully equipped with some healthy carbs, which are, from the dairy product itself. But boy, can it have a lot of added sugar. So it amazes me that this beautiful packaging of the Happy Cow, the Volleman's, and the Promised Land is being sold as a health product because of its happy cow. And it's de-emphasizing what we all know is true, right? Which is that it's very high in sugar. So a mom is going to grab that bottle and feel like it's wholesome, that it's good for you because it came from happy cows. It's amazing to me how little information is on the front of pack. It says, fresh from our farm, deep in the heart of Texas, right? So interesting to me. And so with 30 grams or more of sugar per serving, that's what I call holy cow, not just a happy cow. So really, when we think about these sneaky food labels, what we want to do is think about who's the target. Is it a mom shopping for their baby or their kid wanting to, of course, give them vitamin D and give them nutrition, but give them love? And of course, we give love with food, right? And so Nothing says leaven like something from the oven, and chocolate milk goes really good with it. And so it's absolutely something that we have to keep aware of, that the target is going to have so much to do with what information is on the front of pack. So we're going to look at all natural versus USDA organic. Anybody ever buy something that says all natural and wonder, what exactly does that mean?
Does it mean anything?
No, it doesn't. You're exactly right. Doesn't mean much. And no sugar added versus sugar-free. Now that's a really interesting one, because even the milk label is going to have sugar in it, even if it's not added. So which milk doesn't have any sugar added? Well, skim milk, 2%, whole milk, vitamin D, the old-fashioned. But it can still confuse people because it says, that there's sugar in the product. So same thing with yogurts when we're looking at yogurts. And one of the things I always encourage folks to do is, glance at nutrition facts. But the second one that we really want to look at is, did they add sugar? And honestly, guys, having a little added sugar to a yogurt should not be a deal breaker. So one option would be to buy the plain. I think I've got one floating around here, like the Greek organic or Greek HB brand. You can buy the plain and add your own sugar. Would that be smart? Well, yeah, because you get to decide how much and what kind. I promise you that in the food industry, nobody's going to care about what kind of sugar they put in it unless it's marketed on the front. And what does that do with cost? If they use honey or organic coconut sugar, right? The cost is going to go up. So honestly, one of the best things to do is buy plain and add your own sugar. Now, in some cases, you could probably decide, it's got a little sugar. Is it still a good food? And so that's what I want us to be able to investigate, is we're going to look at the macronutrients of the food. Like today, we're going to look at some yogurts and decide, is it going to fit the need that you have? Does it need to be high protein or maybe low fat or high fat? And of course, the labels are going to try to help you do that. So sugar-free brings in a whole nother category, right? If we see sugar-free on a label, I think there's one that's a Yoplait around there. Will that imply that there's no sugar added? Not necessarily. Sugar-free almost always means that there's a non-nutritive sweetener added to it. Maybe I didn't bring it. So we have to really watch that, because now there's some really good questions around whether or not we want diet sweeteners in our food. That's a real question. And then we look at the non-GMO verified. So this one's going to probably surprise some of you, meaning that when you see it on a label, you automatically think it's a non-GMO food, and that's not a correct assumption. So you'll see about that. And then we've got the diet types, right? The lifestyle, keto, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free. Does that make the food healthy? Definitely not. Because really healthy depends on what your needs are, right? And what you're going to use the food for. If it has no protein in it and you're counting it as a lunch, maybe that's not going to be a healthy choice. Or you've already had a healthy, protein-rich breakfast and you really just want a snack that has about 150 or 200 calories, well, then maybe protein isn't as important. And then we look at, like I mentioned in the very first slide, the omegas and choline and all these other things added to the food. We kind of group them together and call it like the superfoods or the powerhouse of ingredients. That's kind of why I even named my bakery that, because you can add in chia seeds and flaxseed and omegas and make it now the reason why you buy the food, because it's got that extra nutrient. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the certified B Corporation. Has anybody seen that on a label? It's going to be a little B with a circle. Very interesting trend that really started in 2007. So it's been around a while, and it's a really interesting trend that we'll look at. So superfoods help sell in a big way. Do we need to add a pre or a probiotic to our milk? Well, yeah, if you're going to buy a kefir, right, a kefir milk, but regular milk, if it has enough prebiotic in it or probiotic, it's going to change the flavor. So chances are when it says on front of pack that it has prebiotics added or probiotics, so little it's not going to really matter, because if it did, it would change the flavor enough that now we have to call it a drinkable yogurt or a kefir milk, right? So again, superfluous information trying to help that mom pick that product. So we're seeing there is going to be superfluous information on the front, misleading at best, and really not sure what information matters to us. So when we look at all these yogurts, and you can kind of look at some of that I put on the table, like this one is a dairy-free coconut yogurt, and I use this at the bakery, and they're delicious. But for 140 calories, I'm getting 1 gram of protein. Now, does that mean I should deselect this? It's bad for me, it's not healthy, I'm not going to get it? Not necessarily, because we could add to this, right? So say you have to be lactose free, and that's what you look for on labels. This would be a good option. Here's another option, this other lactose free product. And Green Valley is really interesting because they add an enzyme. So it's still a milk-based product, but they've added lactase, so it breaks it down. So you don't really need the enzyme in your own system. And so this one has 7 grams of protein, and it's still dairy-free. This one has 1 gram of protein because it's not dairy at all. And so kind of an aside to this idea is when we select almond milk or soy milk or hemp milk or rice milk, it lives under this halo of healthy because somehow we've gotten the impression that dairy is not good for us. And truly, it's only not good for us if we have a dairy allergy or an intolerance. And then you could pick one that has an enzyme added that still has plenty of protein. But I'm going to say I still love this one because we could add chia seeds, we could add hemp hearts, and customize our low protein for the flavor. Maybe we love that flavor. So again, it's not always going to be an easy decision. This one's kind of new, organic cultured yogurt. So culture is, of course, the case in any yogurt. It has to have an active yogurt culture, but they really use that phrasing here. It also says it's non-GMO, gluten-free, and USDA organic and vegan. So if it's a coconut yogurt, this one's only coconut. Is it sort of extra information to say gluten-free and vegan? It's extra information, right? It's like, of course it is. It's kind of like, I always thought it was so odd that on peanut butter, it would say a cholesterol-free food. That's superfluous information. It doesn't make any sense to put it there because no animal product has cholesterol. Anything that's made with a coconut isn't going to have any animal stuff in there, and there's no gluten either. But you could even look at the ingredients to kind of know that. So again, it's banking on having more of these little call-outs, these fun little key phrases and logos that make you feel like, oh, that must be healthy. And so it really works on our subconscious too. Low calorie is another one. Would we want to pick a yogurt that is specifically low calorie? And so not necessarily. Now you'll see too that there's some yogurts that are very high calorie. And what diet do you think kind of promotes that? Keto. Yes. It wasn't that long ago that, and all of us are of the age where we know about fat-free, right? And then fat became such, a halo. It's like, you know what? We can have all the fat we want. And so now even Haagen-Dazs makes a yogurt, and the Brown Cow, and even Siggy's, which I absolutely love, makes a full fat one. And so does it make it unhealthy that it's got 12 or 15 or 20 grams of fat? Well, it depends. If you're using this as a fat source, so we wouldn't deselect it because it's high in fat, but we have to be really aware that it's going to give you a lot of your fat amounts for the whole day. So it's really a puzzle. Do you think there's any yogurts that don't have calcium? Not many. Because that's in expectations. Kind of the minimum standard is that it should have calcium. And I think we even talked about this a while back at Powerhouse Bakery. The non-dairy ones have calcium added. And so that's kind of an expected ingredient, just like vitamin D is expected in all dairy. All milk, it was added in. And so this one is interesting because it has a call out for how little sugar it has. It has a call out for organic coconuts and no artificial sweeteners or flavors. So it's appealing to somebody that was really looking for all of those restrictions. So things are taken out and how the product is grown. It's kind of interesting. So does taking out the dairy make your yogurt more healthy? And so not necessarily, right? There's just got a small group of people that have a lactose intolerance. So they definitely not necessary. But because this lives under a halo, it's got all these call outs. People might think that, well, I'm going to try this for 140 calories and 10 grams of fat. Is it the best choice for me? With only 1 gram of protein, it depends.
Well, it's so delicious.
I know, exactly. Good point. There's another one that's floating around. I think the HEB one. Yeah, this one right here. This is a new product. So HEB has a whole new line called Higher Harvest. And so this one's interesting. Look at all the call outs on this. 10 grams of protein, 5 grams of sugar, and it's got this whole lineup of little call outs. So it's really trying to build into the healthy choices. Now I'm going to read the ingredients. Almond milk, water, mango, coconut cream, soy protein isolate, modified cornstarch, cane sugar, natural flavors, and active cultures. So what do you think? Do we want modified cornstarch in our yogurt? Not really. If we now compare it with another one that's kind of considered high protein, this one has only skim milk, cream, cherries, fruit, pectin, and sugar. This one has 2 grams of fat. This one has 12, 140 calories, 190, and 15 grams of protein and 10. And the calories really help you decide. This one might be the better choice because the higher protein and the lower calorie.
Would the cornstarch be just to make it thicker?
Yes. And they put the cornstarch in because there isn't enough active yogurt cultures. And why do we eat a yogurt? For the active yogurt cultures, right? Usually, unless of course it's a medium where we want to add in our hemp hearts and we don't like sour flavor of yogurt, So gosh, isn't there so many decision processes that we go through when we pick a yogurt? Yes. Here's the grouping that I brought today that look at protein. The more the better. Now we have learned in classes past that we don't need as much protein as we thought. We certainly need a good amount, and I've talked about getting maybe 15 to 20 grams at each meal. So if you did 20, 40, 60 grams a day, that's more than most women need. That's about how much a man needs that's, 5'7", 5'8", 160 pounds. So that's really a lot of protein. So I bring this one up because we don't really have to pick a protein yogurt if we don't like the flavor. Like some people do not like the consistency of the Fage. It's very thick. Yeah. And people would often choose like Chobani Greek yogurt because I think it's the high protein and healthiest, even if they don't love the flavor. And if you get a chance, look at some of the high protein ones, the Chobani, the Greek blended, the HEB, and the Fage, and see if they have the thickeners added. They may or may not, kind of depends on the brand. Usually the Hill Country Fare and the standard HEB Greek are going to have gelatins added.
Some of this stuff in here, I don't even know what it is. It's Greek to me.
Yeah, it's Greek to you. Right, because there's so many other ingredients. When we look at ones that are a little more classic, the quality of the food starts to come through less. So it makes the macronutrients less of a key, less important.
Because I like to use Chobani plain. That's
Yeah.
I don't want all that
Stuff, good, all the
stuff,
sugars.
but the faye is plain is more like for cooking because it is
Oh.
so thick.
Yeah,
and
you can
it's
use
not
it.
something you want to just sit there and eat with your
Sure.
friends, with fruit or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So more for cooking the faye, and then for just eating
The
breakfast.
Chobani.
I choose the
I love it. So next time you have a Chobani in front of you, if I didn't bring one, I think I did. Yeah, here. See if it has any thing added to the food that you would rather not be in a yogurt. Thank you, ma'am. We could look at that together. It has cultured milk. Cane sugar is the second ingredient, which doesn't necessarily mean bad because we're going to qualify that by looking at how many grams of added sugar. Water, fruit and vegetable juice concentrate for color. Natural flavors. Again, what's that word natural mean? Pectin, guar gum, some flavor extracts. So it does have some thickeners. Is that a bad thing? No, not necessarily, unless you have a tummy issue with some of these thickeners. Guar gum, sometimes causes problems. But, it's interesting because this one doesn't have a lot about the happy cows. It doesn't have, where it's farm raised and, made in Texas, all those, call outs that would appeal to our heart. It kind of gives you the bare bones Greek, and it's blended and it's authentically crafted. No artificial flavors, colors, sweeteners, preservatives, no gluten, and no RSB. We're going to get to RSBT, the hormone. But gluten, again, I can't find a yogurt that has gluten. It's going to have thickeners, but it wouldn't normally have gluten. So again, no, go ahead.
What is concentrate for colors?
Yeah, great question. So they might use, like this one's chocolate flavor, coffee flavor. So I don't know. Yeah, what did they use? It's a secret. But if it's red, I would guess like beet juice maybe, blueberry concentrate. Yeah, food companies are, true scientists to come up with all this.
I have bought that one right there.
Yeah, and it's good?
The coffee one. I eat it like a dessert.
Yes.
It is so good. It's very coffee tasty.
And what I love about that, Rachel, is if you picked this as your dessert, what is it displacing, right? Because most of us are going to think of a dessert as ice cream or cookie. And if Rachel's picking this, now she's getting a bonus of all kinds of nutrients. And before I forget, let's look. Even though the second ingredient was sugar, it has 17 grams, including 12 grams of added sugar. So 12 grams of added sugar, that's about 2 teaspoons. So, you decide if that's a lot. Some reports say they recommend 20 grams a day of added sugar. That is very hard to do if you use anything that's processed into a to-go setting. So, it's a good one. And I love the fact that you're using it as a dessert. Here's one that's also by Chobani, and it's got a flip. Who is this going to appeal to? Lunchables, moms getting their kid to eat yogurt, I think. Or if somebody's kind of new to the yogurt world and thinks, I can't eat it unless it has something in it. Right? Key lime, it's got graham crackers and white chocolate. What do you think that's going to do to the nutrition facts, right? And what's so interesting is on this one, you can hardly read that information because they are de-emphasizing it. Just like the chocolate milk, it was non-existent. That little label right on the top gave you the ingredients, and I'm still baffled as to why they didn't have to put nutrition facts. But yeah, this one's got chocolate, graham crackers, and a sweetened yogurt. So dessert for sure. Mm-hmm. What does it take to have the green makeover? This whole organic, the USDA industry really letting organics show up in so many different food types. And it seems amazing that we could have a product that's loaded with additives and still have the organic label. Is it really free of pesticides if it has the label? Actually, no. There's a lot of pesticides that are permitted if it's organic. Even some that aren't all that healthy, but they have such a short half-life, meaning it breaks down really fast, that it's acceptable. Promise of healthier the answer should be no. Just because it's organic doesn't mean it's going to have all the requirements that we need. to make the food healthy for us. It definitely gives the suggestion of better farming practices. In that first slide where we looked at the milks, it definitely looked happy, healthy, everything in one jug or carton. And that's a dangerous segue because, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean it makes the food healthier, like the chocolate milk. And something that we're also learning about is the responsibility of the company to take care of the waste, earth management, if you will, and regenerating the soils. All that starts to play into this sign of approval that we consumers are checking the box. I mean, we're buying things. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry to have organics. So we obviously are using our dollar to encourage the use of this label.
And organics too. It can be that the land or whatever has always been organic, or all of a sudden they start using organic. So it's not the same.
Yes, that's a great point. And it does take several years and several $1,000s to qualify. Yeah, that's such a good point. And, I don't expect you to read all this, but basically it says that many USDA agencies serve the growing organic sector, whether you're already certified or considering the transition of part of the operation. But basically there's all these educational materials, programs, and services to see how your company could earn this logo. And it's huge. It's a huge full-time job for somebody in a company to be able to maintain and pass this label requirement. So here we've got diet hype or help with some of the labels that show up that are lifestyle labels. And this one honestly is from a product that I love. It's a soy-based pasta. And it is so good. But I saw that keto on there and it just surprised me because most people that are looking for pasta are not going to be following a keto diet. But it's actually amazing. And the reason why it gets to have that keto label on there is because of the amount of protein and the very small amount of carbs. Again, that's a great scenario that is so nice with using soy. It's got a really good amount of fiber and protein, which lower the ratio of the carbs. And so, I bought it looking for vegan, and it just so happened that it had keto. And interesting, it didn't even have a keto label. It just it didn't have a vegan label. It had a keto label. And of course it was vegan, but they decided to appeal to the bigger market sector, which is people following a keto diet. So keto foods have been trademarked by the Paleo Foundation to identify foods that meet restrictions of the ketogenic diet. Snacks must not have more than 6 grams net carbs per serving, 0 added sugar during the processing and packaging. And so when we think about low carb, it doesn't necessarily mean high fat, but sometimes it can. This particular food doesn't have any fat. But when it has that keto label, the consumer is going to think, okay, now what sauce do I get to put on it to make it, keto friendly, which would be the high fat content. Also, when we think about the net carbs, are you familiar with what that means? It's basically if you take the carbs of a food and the fiber, you subtract the fiber and you get the net. You get the remaining carbs after you take out the fiber. And it's a little bit of fudgy math because your body is still going to process the fibers, especially if it's coming from plants. And the hope is that it's going to lower the glycemic index. And the good news is it's going to allow you and encourage you to eat more fiber-rich foods, which are what? Vegetables, whole grains, and some of these other new foods that are bean-like. So lentils, and here we are with the edamame. This one is so fun. Keto made butter really stand out. So let's take a thought process back to, the 80s and 90s. You had just plain old butter to choose from, or you had margarine, right? And butter was kind of the special treat. And gosh, if you lived on a farm, you got the butter from the top of the milk, it rises up and it's the special treat. Well, now it is an absolute science. Look at all the different criteria on this butter. You've got grass-fed, truly grass-fed. We've got from Irish cows, imported from Ireland, because they must have better grass there. Truly, they probably have more grass than we do here in Texas. But interesting that the ones from Ireland do not have the organic label. And so you might have purchased Kerrygold before, and I remember looking at that and years past thinking, I wonder why it's not organic. Well, because in Ireland they don't have the organic labeling. In Europe they don't do that. It's really unique just to the United States that we that we use this marketing strategy, we force the farmers to pay for, and it becomes this great vehicle to sell products because it gets this halo of healthy. So in Ireland, they don't have to do that, but they sure have the grass to make their butter yummy. Never have I tried these until recently, and they are delicious. I mean, a little salted, heavy cream butter is pretty yummy, especially on sourdough bread. But I think what's interesting is now we've got the Central Market one here where it tells us how much butter fat, 82% butter fat. I don't know how much butter fat is in the Ireland one. They don't mention it. So a consumer thinks, it must be a lot because it's been mentioned on the front of pack, which is very erroneous. We don't know if that's a lot or not. And then the good old-fashioned sweet cream butter from H-E-B, Texas cows, it says no artificial growth hormones as its call out. And then it begs the question, well, did the cows in Ireland have any of that? Did they have growth hormones? Because if the label is not there, is that to imply that we've got some cows that get the hormone and some that don't? Very interesting. So the USDA seal, whether or not it's grass-fed, and how much time do they get on the grass? Who would have thought that was an important factor? 250. Why do you think that we look at how long they're eating grass when we're picking butter? Any ideas? The idea is that when the cow gets to eat clover and fresh grasses, there's a lot more nutrients that help to improve the omega-3s, the DHA, all of those healthy fats are supposed to be richer in the butter if they eat grass. Now, who would have thought, right? Why don't we just eat grass ourselves and be done with it? If we eat our leafy greens, we can get all the benefits from the weeds, and the cow, can still be happy. But I think it's a really important point. The assumption becomes, well, in order to get my super healthy omegas, I need to buy that butter. What could we do? Well, we could eat leafy greens. We could eat seeds and nuts. We can eat the plant that has those nutrients. If I've said it once, I've probably said it 100 times, that seeds are the holy grail of nature's harvest of nutrition, because loaded with protein, loaded with fiber, and all those essential fats. So I'm not gonna lie, this butter is delicious, but it's also extremely expensive. So you're gonna pay $6 to $7 for one of these fancy butters. And wow, they're good, but I don't know if they're that good.
I use that one in my yogurts, that one.
Yes, okay. So what makes you pick that one? It's plant-based. You're looking for lower fats, lower in saturated fats probably. It's made with cashew and coconut oil. And so I thought it was so interesting, and it was really popped out too because it's got the USDA organic sticker on there. And none of the other ones had that. So for butter to have USDA organic, it means that the cows had to eat organic, right? And instead, they say grass-fed cows rather than organic. So these little details, does it mean that the Mayokos Creamery vegan butter is healthier because it's got the USDA sticker? Not necessarily. So ultimately, what do we decide? Well, I think probably the best way to make our decision process is understanding where our macronutrients are. So what foods on your best foods list do you put in the fat category that you love? So you might say, you know what, butter on my Ezekiel toast is so good, so it's going on my list. And then you make the decision in the sand that that's going to be one of your sources of fats. And then what's the next food on your fat list? Well, I love butter and it's going to be a rich source of saturated fat. So my next choice on my list, remember your best foods list is how you shop, right? It's your purposefully decision of what foods will be in my repertoire. So then when you're at HEB, you don't have to go, oh my goodness, do I want this one or do I want that one? If you've decided that yogurt is going to be a great breakfast, then it helps you decide what's going to be in it. If it's going to be a snack, it doesn't have to be part of your 20 grams of protein. Well, then you can have one that has no protein, right? So that best foods list becomes so powerful because it helps you draw a line in the sand. Where am I going to get my fats? Where am I going to get my protein? Where am I going to get my carbohydrates? And then you can kind of measure, well, if I'm going to use butter in the morning, there's my fats. Where else can I use fats? Well, I know I'm going to have some olive oil to cook with. I know I'm going to want some avocado here and again, and I know I'm going to want some seeds. Then it helps you to start to tally up. Well, where should they go? Rather than letting the health and food world try to muddy up the decision process with all these crazy decision processes.
I have a question
Yeah.
about that Mayokos.
Yeah.
Butter.
Mm-hmm.
It says plant milk butter. So is that, compared to all the other butters up there, really butter?
That's a great question.
Because, we know that they all have a lot of fat because it is butter. But
Yes.
if that's plant-based or whatever, it says cashew, coconut
Mhm.
oil spread.
Mhm.
That makes me think, well, that's not butter.
I know. That's a great point. The plant-based world wants to fit in, and sometimes they'll call it buttery spread, but they're really trying to appeal to the people that would also buy. You notice they put it in a cute little cube. It's got a very clean, updated look. It's got the USDA. It says down below palm oil and lactose free. Right. What does that mean? Is palm oil bad? Well, not necessarily. Organic palm shortening is what I use as my upgraded frosting because it's super clean. So again, names, phrases are going to target certain customers. And so somehow they're trying to educate the customer that this is just like the butter that you used to eat before you went plant-based, right? It's going to have that same creaminess. You get this whole idea going in your palate. Okay, I think I can settle for that one because I'm trying to, avoid saturated fat and not harm any animals in the making of this butter. Right?
What about the salted versus the unsalted? I always get the unsalted.
Do you? Oh, bless you. I cannot tolerate unsalted butter unless it's a frosting because I love the salt.
Yeah.
It's
Gives it that extra kick that
it
needs.
does. So if you are watching salt intake and you've decided that's a really strategic place to avoid salt, all the power to you.
I just get it because it has extra salt in it. Well, I don't need.
Yeah.
Unless the recipe calls for salt.
Well, there you go.
But
I'm sorry, I was going to say because the other one, some of those, like the Kerrygold, don't mention whether it's salt or unsalted in there. You have to look at the ingredients, I guess. To see.
You know what?
Yeah.
I think it does say it somewhere because I got this one and it was so delicious. It had salt. It had salt. And I think there is one that is unsalted. So, I'm sorry I didn't bring the butters with me so we could have turned it upside down and really check. But I did for the Truly get both unsalted and salted. And
I have to get salted again.
I like them all. I'm telling you, the flavor is just out of this world. And it is a darker yellow when it comes from Ireland. So hopefully they didn't add any color. I didn't see any in the ingredient list. But it's pretty good.
I have some that when a friend of mine was moving, she was emptying out her refrigerator and she gave me a
Oh.
pack of it.
How nice of
But
her.
that's like from last, it's almost like a year old.
Oh.
I don't know if they good anymore.
It might be a little refrigerator tainted, you know,
Yeah.
but it's really pretty yummy.
And you have to keep butter in the fridge?
For the most part, I mean, it's such an interesting thing about the science. If you put butter in a little butter dish and you keep it closed and you don't double dip with a knife, it'll stay for a long time. The amazing thing is with food, if you introduce bacteria, it's going to grow on that medium. But most bacteria want air and some kind of food, so sugar. So butter is not a high growth product. It doesn't have much in there. But if you double dip, now you've just put some bugs in there and they'll find something to eat, you know, to grow mold. So every once in a while, you know, I'll see that, but butter should be fine on a counter for a long time. This one is so fun. I mean, really organic chips. And this is coming. And so we've got, I know it's kind of hard to see, but you know, they've actually put the organic label on all of these new products. Now, what do you think the customer is on this one? Probably anybody that eats chips with a sandwich, shame on them. No, but I know, I tease. But of course, moms, kids, packing lunches, and the mom wants to feel good, and so she's gonna go, oh, we've got organic chips now, green light.
So like it's less processed too, though. You know?
Right, and that's the thing I want us to go, wait a minute, scratch your head. It's still a chip. So are the macronutrients going to give us any value? And, you know, if you don't have to worry about, excuse me, if you don't have to worry about calories and you can afford a little extra treat foods, then you can make the decision. Are we going to have a little, you know, Haagen-Dazs here and there? Are we going to have a little extra butter? Are we going to have a chip with your sandwich? Because remember, it's really all about the calorie balance equation and making sure you get enough of your nutrients. So protein, carbohydrate, fats are the macronutrients. And then the micronutrients are what? Minerals. So calcium, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium. Now, sadly, a processed snack like chips will not give you any micronutrients, but they'll certainly give you macronutrients, right? A fat is a fat in a lot of ways. So, you know, you can pick it. But I feel like it's a dangerous segue to put a USDA sticker on chips because it gives that false halo. You know, it's good, buy them. It's okay, they're organic. Really? No. Now, here's another one that kind of falls into this same category. The Non-GMO Project. Notice that word, Non-GMO Project Verified. So if you go to nongmoproject.org, it's an organization that raises money to help with awareness. It does not mean that this food has no GMOs. Excuse me, I'm going to get a water. I got a tickle. Whew. So, you know, it has a really beautiful label, but it's not stating that the food is free of GMOs. Now, it's also not saying that, I mean, I'm not saying that the food has genetic modification in it, but there's a huge bone of contention right now around genetic modification, that in some cases it makes it a perfectly healthy, good food. And so the industry is trying to figure out how to work with the public on this idea because the public's afraid of anything that's made in the lab. And with good reason, you know, I feel like natural is still good, but the all natural label is complete wash. Things that say all natural have no requirement to fill. At least the USDA label has a very rigorous requirement, but all natural, you know, it's anybody's guess what that is. So this project is trying to really push lobbyists in the, you know, government agencies to stop any food that has genetic modification. That's the project. So if a company is supporting that, you know, they hopefully don't have genetic modification in their foods, but it doesn't guarantee that. Okay, so this one's kind of fun. This is a cottage cheese product, new and improved, certified with love from family farms who love the planet. Right? Does that make it healthier? No, but it's pretty tasty. Now look at this. It also says 14 grams of protein, simple ingredients, thick and creamy. And I put over here, made from stuff you can pronounce, unlike that yogurt you were trying to read earlier. Produced by people who love the planet, who really, really like cottage cheese. You know, so that makes you go, oh, I'm going to like that one. And then when we go to, let me show you the next one. Breakstone has been around a long time. Anybody ever eat Breakstone cottage cheese? I don't know. For some reason, I went on a hiatus of not eating cottage cheese for probably 8 years. I just, blah. And just recently, I tried it again because I tried the new label, the cute little blue one. It popped up, and I thought, well, I'm going to try it. And it was so salty. I forgot how salty cottage cheese is. So if you're a lover of cottage cheese, salt becomes like a, do I want to spend all my salt milligrams on that half a cup? Because you get a lot of salt. And so I included one of the little links down here because I wanted you to check it out if you're interested. And it talks about the hormones. So I'm going to go there in just a second. When we look at sodium, so notice that no added hormones, simple ingredients, and it does not, let me see, I think it's the previous one. Hold on. Darn it, I didn't give you the back label of Breakstone. No, I did. There it is. 40% less sodium. So anybody that is a cottage cheese fan and they scratch their head and think, gosh, do I want to use all my sodium milligrams in that serving? Now you might see that call out and go, oh yeah, Breakstone, I forgot. That one's a better one because it's lower in salt. The problem is 40% less than what? I compared it with 3 different brands and I could never get a 40% difference. Let's talk about an arbitrary number. It sounds pretty good though, right? If it were 60%, your mind might go, oh, it might not taste as good. But 40%, little less than half, I could probably deal with that, right? It plays with your psychology so much. And so the sodium content is 340 milligrams in the good culture. And I'm sorry I didn't give you the other side of the Breakstone, but I promise you it does not add up to 40% less. Now, the other thing that's interesting, big call out, no added hormones. I've been doing a little more research on the hormone, the RSBT, and what that is a hormone that's given to cows to encourage milk production. And there are some dairy companies that in fact do inject that into their cows. And I don't think I included that slide, but if you want me to show it to you, I will, because I have it in my picture log. But what it means is these labels regulated by the FDA are used on dairy products to tell you what cows were not treated with this hormone, recombinant bovine somatotropin. And so most dairy companies don't use it, but a couple of them do. So if it doesn't say it on there, you can pretty much assume that it did get some hormones. The cow did get some hormones. So that call out becomes important. And then what I want us to do is step back a minute and think, why are we worried about that? Are we thinking that the hormone's getting into the milk? It came from a fear that happened probably a good 10 years ago. There was a study that said that young girls and even boys are hitting puberty too early because of all the hormones, right? Where are they getting the hormones? Oh, it must be from the farm, the darn cows that the farmers are, pumping them up with. When we did a little more checking, it had nothing to do with the intake of whatever RSBT showed up in milk. Guess what it came from? Kids overeating, not exercising enough, increasing their body fat, and propelling puberty too fast. And so, then you start to see even little boys that are starting to have fat around the chest. It's not from drinking milk. whether it has the free RSBT or not, it's because they're gaining too much body fat and they're not exercising it off. And so same thing with girls.
Fast food.
Exactly. So it's not the milk. It's probably the fast food, it's the video games, and it's the increased body fat that increases the hormone levels. And boys, just like girls, have all the hormones. Of course, boys have more testosterone, but the reality is that that's what is pushing puberty onset sooner because the kids are overweight. Oh, I'm going to run out of time. So cottage cheese is getting some culture. I kind of played on words there because now look at this one. We even have one that's called low sugar. Sodium, for sure is significant, but since when did cottage cheese ever have sugar? So why would we need to sell it as low sugar? Well, if you add sugar in and make it strawberry flavor, well, now you got to take it out, right? So there's a real play on that. And I know all of you could think of a way to add fruit to your cottage cheese without necessarily adding sugar. You could, use your own fresh fruit. Now you get minerals, fiber, and some naturally occurring fruit. I know, no brainer. So planning, shopping, cooking, and eating is never easy. We have so much to think about. When we start looking at creamers, I confess I bought this because I was so darn curious. How could it possibly be such a superfood? And it was terrible. I was going to bring you guys some samples, but I put it in my coffee just like it tells you, and it was clumpy and nasty. Let me see if I can go. This one, our favorite recipe, add 2 tablespoons of the creamer to your cup. Trust us, the creamer goes first. Add 6 to 12 ounces of hot coffee, tea, froth, and enjoy. Well, I did exactly that. No froth, just clumps of, so the ingredients are so interesting to me. How could it froth anyway? Okay, it's got coconut milk powder, tapioca maltodextrin. Anybody want to guess what maltodextrin is? AKA sugar, right? Sugar, and organic coconut sugar as well. And then here's another crazy thing. So look on this side. It is the superfood, sweet and creamy, and then over here, reduced sugar. Now look a little closer. Calories, 10, 15. It's like, what? Did you make a mistake? And then the serving size is 1 teaspoon, right? What? And then their favorite recipe is 2 tablespoons. They're hoping you might not notice, right? How many teaspoons in a tablespoon? 3! So I am so disappointed in this company. I can't believe how much misinformation they're doing. And look, they even have the non-GMO verified, which is totally irrelevant because this is is a totally high processed food, right? It's coconut, good, but it's not considered really a food that needs genetic modification. And then we've got dairy-free, soy-free, non-GMO, all the labels. So imagine how much it costs the company to get all of those on there. Guess how much this package cost? Okay, now I'm going to give you some help. It's about this big. It had, let me see, 16 recipes, 113 servings or 16 recipes per container. Because nobody's going to put a teaspoon in. It wasn't even creamy and the good color without the 2 tablespoons. So basically for 16 servings, it costs $11. Here's another one. It's a no-brainer. Ha ha. Look at that. No-brainer. And this is all based on keto. And so remember the Paleo Foundation owns this keto world. And so grass-fed butter, well, we've already decided that real butter is pretty darn amazing. And then if you want to get the nutrients from grass-fed butter, go eat your grass. Not really, but And then MCT oil. Anybody know what MCT oil is? No? Yes? Maybe? It's a short-chain fatty acid that tastes terrible by itself. I know about MCT oils only because I used to formulate tube feeding for people that are really sick in the hospital. And the MCT oil had to be covered up with flavors because it was nasty. Okay, so note to self, that does not add to the flavor. Yes, and it still is for athletes because somebody said that coconut oil has more MCTs, and they're easier for the body to digest and burn
And
for
lose
energy.
weight.
Yeah.
Take MCT.
Right, which is crazy. Who's going to take a tablespoon of coconut oil to lose weight? I mean, I'd much rather enjoy my fat. Thank you very much. And so, it talks about net carbs. Well, it's just coconut oil, so, it does not have much carbs, but it's really kind of confusing the whole issue. Ingredients, I'm sorry it's blurry, but grass-fed butter, and then it's got these MCT oil fancy terms, which are basically fats, and then some kind of thickener. Knead me and squeeze me. It's playing a lot of play on words with the no-brainer one. It's just fun. But who's it attracting? Probably fitness folks, people that are really trendy, that want to try everything. So I confess, I bought not all of them. And I am going to return the one I did buy because it was so bad. But, I love this. It's like, stir me up, buttercup. Somebody had fun with that labeling, right? And so I know I'm out of time, so I'll go quickly through this, and I'll share the link with you if you'd like. But this Certified B Corporation is super cool. So back in 2007, a group of guys got together and said, we really want to change how the farming and food companies do business. Isn't it possible that we could do business, which is make profit, and still benefit people and the planet? And so when they built this idea, and here's that YouTube link if you want to check it out. And there's a really cool YouTube guy called Future Proof. I'll share with you. So fun to watch. It has really good information on this. But the idea was that how do we make sure that companies are going to follow some restrictions so that they are mindful of how people in their company are taken care of, how the planet is taken care of, meaning there isn't excessive waste, there isn't excessive pollution, and still make a profit. And so again, it was really hard. It was a high barrier of entry to really get into this. And then what happened was Big Pharma wanted to get involved. And so Nestle, which is a notoriously bad company, was able to earn this B certified by pulling a bunch of strings. And so the industry got so unhappy. It's like, wait a minute, how can Nestle, who does child labor, has incredible amounts of waste? For example, they do the little Nestle pods for coffee, and there's this huge amount of waste in our landfills for the little, what do you call the little pods? You pull down the thing and it makes your cup of coffee. Yeah, huge amount of waste. And so how did they earn this label? Well, they wanted it because consumers like the idea of people, profit, and planet. And so they're like, yeah, we want that. And so they convinced the powers of be that let them have that. And everybody in the industry was so unhappy. So the B Corp standard was really at risk. And, transitioning our economy to a healthier practices was really the goal. So they're trying to get back to it, and they're making some changes. But like I said, Nestle and the evil, Magna corporations really diluted the value of this B Corp principle. And so again, we can vote with our dollar by really picking the foods. And I had one, and I'm sorry, I forget which one it had B Corp on there. We can really buy those products because, again, it's expensive and hard to maintain. And I love the fact that it has principles that are worthy. And this is the dude that I just thought was so fun. So I'll share the link with him. But really taking care of the environment, the workforce, and the product quality is a thing now. So here we are in 2020. It started with the B Corp back in 2007 and really understanding how to get USDA on board. And they carried the train a little bit. And now the whole new trend. So you might have seen fair trade. Some of the companies in Canada and Rainforest Alliance, they're all really trying to do what's right, which is make a profit, care about people, so their employees, and of course the planet. So I just think that's a trend that I want to be a part of. And I just think it's so exciting. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Bobby Kennedy, but he's like all over this idea. And I just think, wow, if we had a president like that was going to help us improve our food resources and help companies learn how to stay small and smart rather than big and crazy, I think that would be the way to go. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great lunch.